right, guys, we're back here for week 15 in the saltwater hobby. If you guys are new to the channel, I started this saltwater Evo 13.5 gallon saltwater aquarium 15 weeks ago. So this is week number 15, and I'm going to just tell you a little bit about our experience so far. Again, I had no prior experience in the hobby, and if you've been following along and are new, hopefully you've been learning, about keeping a saltwater aquarium and learning through my experience, but also some of the mistakes I've made along the way. So if you're new, do consider subscribing. And for all of you experienced reefers that have been following along and helping myself out, as well as newer reefers by commenting on our videos as I continue to upload them. I'd like to thank you guys as well. But let's walk through here week 15 and what we're seeing, okay? So right now, in terms of the biggest changes we've seen are algae growth overall. Okay, so if we look around the tank, and I'm just gonna zoom into some of these pieces, right? These are artificial rock, coral life sea rocks. But as we see, when I first got them, they were very, very purple. And now they're starting to have a lot of algae growth. And you can see that even if we zoom into the snail and the red-leg hermit crab, you can see that there's quite a lot of algae growth on their shells. And we see our zoa there that we started. That one's looking very, very nice. If we go down here to our mushroom, he's recovered. We recently had a salinity spike in the tank because I was not topping up water with fresh water. And guys, it was only a few days and I had salinity spikes, so do avoid that. As you see, we still have our lovely gobby and cleaner shrimp, and we do have a pistol shrimp in the tank hiding out somewhere in the cave system. And actually, is that him in this cave? I believe that is his little pinchers in there. But guys, this is what we're looking like after 10 weeks. As we see, our torch is doing well. He's getting longer and longer tentacles and continues to extend. The cleaner shrimp, as far as I've seen, has shed his exoskeleton about 3 times. So typically when he does that, I just leave the exoskeleton inside, and then it is consumed by the inhabitants. We started with 6 hermit crabs. Now I'm only seeing about 3, so I'm wondering if the pistol shrimp started to nip some of them, okay? As I mentioned, when we look on the back glass, we're starting to see a lot more algae. I actually haven't cleaned the tank this week, and I haven't done any maintenance on the tank, but this is a nice visual in terms of the overall change. And you can go back to our earlier weeks and see what the tank looked like, right? I mean, as I said, we're 15 weeks in, and by month number 6, we're going to be ready to introduce an anemone. As of late, I haven't introduced anything new to the tank. I was thinking about getting a pom-pom crab today, but did get busy earlier in the day, and I haven't made it to the aquarium shop. So I am going to go there and see what we can get, and it would be something that we would add. I mean, in addition here, a couple of weeks back, we added the frag rack, and I believe I still have it a little bit high. I usually keep this blue light on, as it, the par strength of the light is not as strong. And what I found, if you compare that zoa, guys, I'm going to try to get in there a little bit, or turn on the light at least. So if you compare that zoa, you see, I mean, it seems to be doing okay. I ended up placing it back here, but I mean, look at this zoa, right? It's just like far more spread out. So I mean, there's clearly a distinct difference between this one here on the rack. I think it needs to go a little bit lower, so maybe I will lower the rack. That's been recommended. I had it a little higher up, and the reason I brought it down was because I didn't want it to bleach. I did move the zoas down, but then sometimes when the gobby swims up for food, he ends up knocking it over, or the snails will knock it over. It's almost like this zoa, it's not glued in, it's almost like it's nested itself in the rock. And I moved it because I had both zoas on this particular rock, and my understanding is that eventually one would outcompete the other and, you know, grow over top of the other one. So I did end up moving it, but I think I need to move it off that rack and lower, and I'll need to glue it down. So guys, I mean, this is where we're at right now. You know, with the salinity spike, this mushroom rock was not looking the best. Now, as you tell, when we turn the lights on, it's still off the rock, right? So one thing I'm going to do today is measure salinity, and we're going to do a water change likely tomorrow. You know, based on, I usually use, you know, the coral and how they're doing to essentially determine, like, wait a second, do I need to clean the tank? You know, what's the best protocol, right? I mean, to be honest, I have not been in the back chamber and cleaned out the sponge in about 2 weeks. It's something that I need to do. The livestock seem to be doing well. I'm trying to stick to not overfeeding, but feeding twice a day in smaller amounts, sometimes pellet food, and sometimes brine shrimp. So overall, again, this is our live rock. We don't have too much of it, right? That's the big distinction. But as you see, there's been a little bit of purple that's either splashed off the coral life sea rocks and splashed onto there. But in all likelihood, there's also been some algae growth on that live rock. Yeah, and I mean, you're starting to see like even algae growth to the point where it's, you know, kind of moving around due to the wave maker. I'm wondering if I should vacuum some of that off. Like, thankfully, when we look at the sand bed is not too green or brown, so we're still doing okay. As I said, I'm going to try to clean off the glass a little bit today, maybe clean off the back sponge, and tomorrow we'll do a water change. In terms of mistakes or lessons that I would say keep an eye on if you have a new reef tank, is make sure you're doing 10 to 20% water changes, whether it's 10% weekly or bi-weekly at 20%. Make sure that you're not using tap water to clean out your biomedia or your sponge in the back. Always use tank water. You will kill the beneficial bacteria if you use tap water, so you want to avoid that, okay? Also, I would say don't over clean the tank. Don't stick your hands in too frequently. And again, if you have colorful coral, you want to consider using gloves. And in some cases, I haven't done this. I haven't fragged any coral. Like, for example, if you're going to be fragging zoas, you want to be making sure that you're using protective equipment. But all in all, guys, this is a learning experience. We're 15 weeks in. It's been by no means perfect, but in terms of an all-in-one, it's been relatively easy to maintain. To date, the only issue I've had, significant issue aside from this mushroom kind of probably needing some extra TLC, would be I had a torch which I kept on the sand bed, and the pistol shrimp ended up kind of nipping at it and pulling it in, and it got some sand on the tentacles, and that was an expensive lesson. So guys, that's why I invested in the coral rack. You want to make sure your coral are not directly on the sand bed. You will likely have issues. When we think about nature, and if we thought about where you would find, per se, let's say, one of these guys here, a torch, they're going to be on the rock bed. They're not going to be directly on the sand. So, we want to replicate nature as much as possible. And we want to make sure that we're taking care of our livestock and our coral, especially if we're, investing in building a sustainable ecosystem. The other big thing, I do have a video that I'm going to be releasing, which is essentially, big mistakes that new reef keepers make in a smaller nano tank like an Evo 13.5, right? And there's several things that we want to avoid, so do keep an eye out for that. As I said, in terms of overall tips, right, guys, like simple things: stick to your water changes, measure your water parameters, don't overfeed, guys, and take things slow. And I think with that said, you'll have a great experience if you're setting up an aquarium. And if you've been out of the hobby, there's been subscribers that have said, hey, I've actually been watching your stuff. I've been out of the hobby and looking to get back into it. And it's been, nice to watch someone that's new in the game, really enjoy the hobby and use it as an opportunity to learn. What I find, I guess, comforting is a sense that even folks that have been in the hobby a long time, whether they've remained in it or exited it, they maintain that there's always room to learn, right? And so, if you're new to the hobby, again, what I would say is do a little bit of research. You can go back and watch some of my videos and, look at the tank updates and look at my experience week to week. But what I would say is start with stuff that is hardy or easier to keep, right? So start with soft coral and start with hardier fish. Like, one of the things that I discovered initially was that clownfish are relatively hardy. So before you introduce your clownfish, make sure that you're introducing invertebrates like snails and hermit crabs, and start there, and then slowly look at what other fish are hardy, right? I'm sure clownfish are not the only hardy fish in the saltwater hobby. Your local fish store can help you with that, but clownfish are, pretty enjoyable to watch in a tank like this. Initially, I started with one and took a little bit of time for the second one to get, bond with the primary, but here we are, and they're getting along pretty well. Now, some of our subscribers tell me that clownfish are characters, and sometimes they'll even nip at their own owners if they stick their hands in the tank. Now, in my case, I don't find them doing that, thankfully, and they don't seem to fight each other, right? They don't seem to pick on each other, which is great. As I said, from my perspective, overall experience with a saltwater tank prior to this would have been going to an aquarium and watching them in an aquarium, probably in far larger numbers. So it's pretty cool to be able to have this in my living room and, keep this tank. It really has not been that much work. The biggest adjustment, again, is just preparing the salt water and making sure it's heated before replacing it in the tank when I'm doing a water change. So it hasn't been too bad. Again, the other, big thing is, with any tank, whether it's fresh or salt, you don't want to be doing too much in the tank too often, right? Which means changing the water too frequently. And I think I've done a fairly decent job at maintaining stability. Of course, there's going to be far more experienced people out there that say, maybe I rushed into it too quickly or I stocked the tank too quickly. But here we are after 15 weeks. So far, so good. And I still do continue to listen, of course, to all the recommendations that are made, right? I recently had an issue with salinity and had to make some adjustments in terms of topping up fresh water. Excuse me, guys. So, ATO automatic top-offs are, great if you want to automate. But right now, I still don't have any automations leading up to week 15. So, guys, those are things that I'll be incorporating. Excuse me, guys. I was a little bit sick this week. But those are things that I'll be incorporating, are things like automatic top-offs, lighting that's maybe a little bit more efficient, that's not going to bleach any of our coral if they're too high up. And, excuse me, guys. Beyond that, I'm going to continue to monitor things and still continue to take things slow. I think I am going to add to the cleanup crew to help with the algae growth. So that's going to include some more snails and some more crabs. And I'm really, as I said, wanting to get a pom-pom crab. One of our subscribers had said that they had one, and more and more I look into it. I thought, oh man, that'd be really, really cool to have in the tank. And I'm just hoping that the pistol shrimp and the pom-pom crab can coexist. And guys, if any of you have that combination, a pom-pom crab and a pistol in a tank this size or larger, let us know how that's working and whether they're coexisting in the tank. As I said, in terms of a community tank, I found the 2 clownfish, the gobby, the pistol, and our cleaner shrimp to be coexisting quite nicely. At any rate, guys, I want to thank you for continuing to watch the videos and contribute in a meaningful way, sharing your experience and your comments. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, as it, of course, it helps our channel growth, and we'd love for you to be a part of this community. I'd like to thank everyone for your support and continuing to watch and, of course, engage in dialogue on this channel. Thanks so much and have a great day.